This episode is brought to you by Polestar. There's only one true way to experience the all-electric luxury SUV Polestar 3, and that's to take a test drive. It can go from 0 to 60 in as little as 4.8 seconds with the dynamic handling of a sports car. But to truly understand how it commands the road, you need to be behind the wheel. Up to 350 miles of range, the 3D surround sound system by Bowers & Wilkins. It's all something you have to experience to believe. So book your test drive for Polestar 3 today at polestar.com.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Got a car to sell but no time to waste? Hop on to Carvana.com to get a real offer for your car in seconds. All you have to do is enter your license plate, answer a few quick questions, and if you accept the offer, Carvana will pay you as soon as you hand the keys over. They even offer same-day pickup in many cities. Save your time, score some cash, and sell your car the convenient way to Carvana. Pickup times vary. Fees may apply.
Hello, friends and family. Welcome back to the Sober is Dope podcast. I'm your host, POP Buchanan, and today I want to talk about stress and recovery and stress in general and how to navigate stress. So for most of us on the recovery journey, we have this challenge of dealing with life and the stresses of life in a sober state. So we don't really have we have many coping mechanisms, but where being in active recovery, it implies that we use substances in the past to deal with stresses and anxiety and challenges in our life. So when you're sober, it becomes a little bit more challenging on how we navigate stress. So this episode is to share overview on how I attack stress in my life, how I look at it in general, the sacrifices I make personally to ensure that I have reduced stress or I'm in an environment that fosters self-care and love. So for me, what it looks like, I'll give you some context. If you're new to Sober is Dope, I'm Pop Buchanan. I'm the founder of Sober is Dope. I am currently 12 and a half years sober. My drug of choice was alcohol. And when I say was, I really mean was, because I made a commitment to God and myself never to go back to alcohol. That thing was like the most debilitating substance that I ever could imagine. I have this theory that I don't like to beat up my old self and my younger self and the addicted person that was in me. I had my challenges like everyone else, and I grew out of it, and I found my recovery. So I noticed in retrospect, the younger version of me that was in addiction was learning how to deal with life and cope, and learning how to come to grips with a reality where I couldn't use substances, and I wouldn't use substances to deal with any aspect of life, whether it was having fun or dealing with stress or anxiety. I had to find a way to cope and live a life without alcohol. And I could report back that life is so much better. I mean, generally, my friends out there, friends and family of the Sober is Dope community, life truly is better in recovery. I've seen this through family, friends, and people who took the leap of faith and chose themselves. And you never see a story where someone is worse off in recovery than they were in their addiction. So for me, stress in general and how I looked at it in the past, when I was in addiction, it was just like an immediate excuse to use, right? It was immediate. Like I had an argument, I'm going to get drunk. Something didn't go my way, I was going to get drunk. I wanted to blow something off or self-sabotage a situation, I'm going to get drunk. If I didn't have money to drink, I'm going to go harass people and bother people for money to drink. I'm going to go smoke cigarettes and chain smoke cigarettes. Then I'm going to drink. Then I'm going to black out. Then I'm going to get upset. And then I'm going to realize that the problems that I was running from did not get solved. So then I'll have to drink all over again and repeat that cycle year in, year out, time after time again. And it's just one of those corny, kind of like depressing life cycles. Addiction is just like this negative cycle that just keeps going, and it just digs you deeper into the grave, and you go deep into the rabbit hole. And then it causes more stress, anxiety, and depression as a result. So does it help anyone out there? No. And, we have to find creative ways to cope, and we have to find creative ways to deal with life on life's terms. So with that being said, the way I would deal with stress in early recovery, I would stay working. I would always be like, I'm working, I'm working, I'm working, I'm working. And I would eat a lot, so I gained a lot of weight, which is nothing wrong with that, I guess. It was better than drinking, right? But that was a coping mechanism. Food I used as a coping mechanism. It wasn't always the healthiest food, so that created other problems. What else would I do in early recovery to help me? I would chain smoke. So it took me 5 years into my recovery to actually, no, well, hold on. It took 2 years into my recovery to kick cigarettes. So look, I leaned on cigarettes. I'm not going to lie. I leaned on cigarettes for the first 2 years. That helped me. As long as I had some old dues or some water or something fun to drink that was not alcohol related. And when I say old dudes, I was one of those early non-alcohol frenzy people where there was only kind of like old dudes and Frey out. Frey was like a non-alcoholic wine. It really has no alcohol in it. It's kind of like an elevated grape juice that has flavors like wine. It has the same body as wine, but without the alcohol. And look, I don't care what anyone's saying in recovery. I'm totally for people experimenting with non-alcoholic spirits and non-alcoholic drinks and the whole non-alcoholic frenzy. Because you have to have fun in recovery, right? And a lot of the movement, the non-alcohol movement is legit. They have thousands of products now that's catered to someone that's in sobriety that don't want to drink, and the only advice and disclaimer I would put on non-alcoholic beverages and dealing with life and trying to have fun in recovery and even leaning on it as a way to get out of hard drinking in the short term is if you're in early recovery or you're new to sobriety, I would suggest you not really do it. I would say wait at least a year. I wouldn't say a year. I would say give yourself 6 months. Make sure you're grounded. The last thing you need to be doing is going to get a non-alcoholic Heineken when you just got in, when you're just exploring your sobriety. That could be triggering. For me, I kind of waited, I think, the first year. Then, it was only old dudes. I knew of old dudes way before I was drinking old dudes even when I was drinking. Some, friends that have it sometime. I'd be like, oh, this is cool. It tastes like a little bit like beer, but, you can't get drunk. So it helped, and what we're talking about, the fundamental aspects of this episode is how to deal with stress and how to mitigate stress in a stressful life when you're in recovery. So I could honestly say, having the option to drink non-alcoholic beverages was a way of dealing with stress. It gave me something to do when everyone else was still getting drunk. And I felt like, I had that fear of missing out, or I felt like an outcast. I could go to a party and go to the bartender and say, hey, man, you have old dudes, man? Oh, yeah, we got old dudes. We have a non-alcoholic IPA. And you say, cool. And now it looks like you fit in, but you're not getting drunk, right? So you don't have this problem. It's either that or just go crazy on Red Bulls at the club, and that's not always healthy either. I remember in the beginning when I would go out and I would order energy drinks to kind of I'm trying to be cool. Let me get a Red Bull with some seltzer and a lime. Yeah, but you drink 5 Red Bulls by the end of the night, your heart's pumping, and you running up and down the club like a maniac. So I had to find creative ways to deal with it. So let's get into this episode. Stress, life, anxiety, coping, mental health, it's all real subjects, right? Sober is Dope is really specific on dealing with mental health and the aspects of mental health in relationship to your recovery, right? So you can't separate the two. You can't say, I'm a recovering alcoholic and I don't address my mental health, because alcohol is a depressant, right? So what alcohol tends to do is it tends to exacerbate and increase the depressive symptoms that you're feeling from your own emotional depression. So it causes depression. It depresses the nervous system and it makes you feel even worse. It's not good for your brain. Alcohol is like taking Mike Tyson and your brain is like a punching bag and telling him just go crazy, right? So we kind of batter our brains when we're drinking, and that's damaging to our mental health because we lose the faculties and resources to cope and manage with the stresses of life, right? So we start to implode and spiral out of control. You can't separate the two, okay? So we talk a lot about comorbidities, the connection between grief, pain, loss, trauma, PTSD, stress, anxiety, depression, and how that increases and adds to your addiction, and how your addiction increases and adds to these mental health components, right? So to simplify it all, dealing with your stress and dealing with how to manage and mitigate stress and recovery is ultimately going to help you improve your mental health while improving yourself on the recovery journey. So when we talk about how to deal with stress, we have to talk about self-care, right? And what that looks like for all of us and what that looks like in general. So for me, let's get right to it. The first thing I would say when dealing with stress and how to cope with stress is trying to tap into a higher power outside of yourself. That doesn't mean you have to go to church and be religious, right? So there's a lot of people in the Sober as Dope community that deal with God and higher power and religion, which is a beautiful thing to cope. Then there's a lot of people who's like, well, I don't want to deal with that. I'm totally not into that. And so when we say the higher power, we're talking about having some type of practice that takes you into the spiritual aspect of your human condition, right? So sometimes I don't think you could find spirituality truly in a book or a person or a thing. It's an inside job. Like they say, happiness is an inside job. So you have to find a way to find your spirituality by tapping into yourself, which means what? Dealing with your emotions, facing your fears, understanding your shortcomings, learning to love yourself, learning to nurture the aspects of you that makes you happy and makes you feel fulfilled. So, if you create art as a human expression, that could be a spiritual outlet to a higher power. Like you use art to connect with your spirit to make you happier. If you're a dancer and you dance and that's your way of really communing, some cultures dance, prayer, singing were forms of worship. So these ancestral qualities of these things that are maybe non-traditional ways of dealing with the spirit are rooted in spirituality also. So all I'm saying is try to tap into a higher power, try to really work that out, and try to find creative ways to disconnect from the world and the physical and to reconnect with the spiritual. So that could look like meditation. It could look like singing. It could look like prayer. You could do non-denominational prayer where you just pray for greater good for yourself, where you make wishes to a higher power or some form of a greater aspect. So it would sound something like this. I want to connect with myself and my spirit, and I wish myself and my spirit happiness and peace, and those that I love happiness and peace. I attract and I'm asking for happiness, peace, love, and to connect with myself on a greater level, right? You see, that had nothing to do with dogma, religion, anything like that. So be creative with how you use your words. Because if you're in a stressful environment, you have to be able to use the words, change the words that you use, change the environment, change your perspective, because stress puts us in this box where we kind of feel trapped. And then if you stay in that box too long, eventually you're going to feel like relapsing, or you're going to start thinking slippery thoughts that lead to relapsing, right? And we don't like the R word, right? We don't like that R word, relapse. So connect to a higher power. The other thing I would like to say, if you are exposed to spirituality, prayer, pray to God. God is good. I don't like to dance around God, but I do have people in the community that just don't subscribe to that. So I respectfully acknowledge that. But Pop, it is no Pop Buchanan without God. There's no Pop Buchanan without Christ, and there's no Pop Buchanan without spirituality. You can't take one and then out the other. Like, I come as a package deal. I think God sent me here directly. I dream. I'm from a different dimension. I'm all dipped in the Most High, man. You can't. If you see me, I'm just an extension of the thought and love and compassion and creativity of my Creator. I don't take no glory, no honor, nothing unto myself. Anything that makes me great or appealing comes from the Father. Everything that sucks comes from me, right? The imperfections, right? But I say that in jest, but I do believe that God is good, God is great, and God brought me here. So if you do subscribe to spirituality on a religious or even a more specific way, prayer is a really great stress reliever. Moving along, let's talk more about self-care techniques and how to deal with stress and recovery, especially if you're dealing with someone else in your life. Like if you're dealing with a family member that you have to live with or something and they cause you stress, you have to learn how to deal with other people. If you're in a relationship or you're married, or if you're dating, or whatever it looks like, to deal with relational stress and human stress also takes creativity, meaning that you have to set boundaries, you have to have compassion, and you gotta practice radical forgiveness, because people are gonna people, right? We should make that a t-shirt. People are going to people. They're gonna do crazy things. And life, even I'm going to do crazy things to disrupt somebody in my family's life, someone that I love. I'm not perfect. So I know dealing with me, it's not easy, right? I'm a handful. So anyone in my family, Pop is a challenge. There's always something with him. He's very sensitive. He's always into something. So I'm aware that I'm not perfect. So I know I cause stress to people that I love, and I try to balance that out with love and isolation, and sometimes minding my business and removing myself. And I do all these things, but what's the point? As humans, we can't avoid other humans, and there's going to be relational stress when dealing with humans. So you have to, one, set boundaries. You have to know how to say no. You have to know how to prioritize self-care and self-love. And you have to make sure that you are prioritizing your recovery first when dealing with anyone else. I don't care if it's a parent, I don't care if it's a husband or wife, and I don't care if it's your kids, okay? There's many people who will let their parents, their lovers, and their children drive them crazy and back into addiction. Set boundaries and put your recovery first. The only thing you shouldn't put your recovery above is God. Other than that, it should be God or higher power, then your self-care, self-love, and your recovery, than everyone else. Why? Because when you relapse, it mimics darkness and the devil and stuff like that, and that darkness and craziness that rock bottom and addiction brings to families, and it tears everything apart. So you go from one extreme to another. If you don't control the human and the familiar stress, then you relapse, then you just tear the whole world apart. You don't want to go from one extreme to another. So relapsing and using is never the excuse on dealing with stress. It's just going to bring every perceivable problem back in your life tenfold, okay? So you have to put people in their place, relationships in their place, family in their place, friends in their place, social media in its place, work in its place, life in this place, and you have to know how to extricate yourself and remove yourself from that whenever it starts to become too much. So knowing how to exit stage left when necessary is a form of self-care and mitigating stress. So moving along, elevating our stress relief to self-love and higher aspects of care and love could be like, me, I had this ritual now where, I got my new apartment, with my girl, and she's sober, and we're enjoying ourselves, right? And we have a beautiful new tub. It's like a really fancy tub, and it's the first time I could really like create a sauna effect in my own place, right, without going to a gym. So I kind of create this like sauna. I got the red light going for photobiomodulation because I'm into self-love and health. So when you put near infrared red light on you, 660 nanometers or 880 or 860, these kind of wavelengths of light, it kind of helps reduce stress, it reduces inflammation, and it helps the body be, I could go into all the science, but that's a different episode. But I would do something like that. I would take Epsom salt, I'll put it in a tub, I'll run hot water, I'll create the sauna effect, I have the red light going, I'm playing some Meta's dope music in the background, some positive music, or I might be listening to a podcast and I'm chilling, right? My girl is cooking, she's sober, she's chilling, she's doing her thing. We living life, right? We keeping it sexy, we're keeping it fun, and we're detaching from the world while we're healing and trying to elevate our vibration. So use your place, like beautify your place. If you don't like your place, get a new apartment, get a new house, get something that makes you feel comfortable with being home. And get rid of people in your house that's annoying. Now, you can't get rid of your kids unless they're after 18 and nothing like that. So I'm not telling you to just get rid of essential family members, but I'm saying if you have a negative cousin that's living with you, or auntie that's out of pocket, or someone that needs that they're overstaying their welcome and they're creating stress in your home, get rid of them because you're in recovery, right? So practice self-love and use your environment. Now, when I talked about the sauna and the red light and stuff, that kind of takes us into this kind of realm of like self-love and kind of beautification and just like pampering yourself and just like de-stressing to another level, taking things seriously. Like for some people, it might be, having a candle-lit dinner. I don't promote candles in the household because of fires, but I'm saying like creating an ambient, whether you're using ambient lights or safe candles or fireproof candles or something like that. Create an atmosphere. Maybe it could be around dinner. Maybe it could be like every night you have this candlelit dinner, then you take a bath, then you read a book, then go for a nice romantic walk, then you have like a nice tea. Or you see what I'm saying? Like if you take your evening and you make it really sexy and about de-stressing, don't bring your work home. Leave your work at work. I tell people another thing, like you can't have a successful evening in recovery if you're overworking. Like, you have a 9 to 5, you shouldn't be working at not 5:30. I don't care. These companies, I tell people this, oh, I'm burning the clock from both ends. I'm like, why? The company's $1 billion company you're working for, most likely. It's nothing you could do for an extra 30 minutes to an hour after you clock out to benefit your company. It's an illusion. Just be efficient with your time on the clock and then leave work at work. Leave the people at work and the drama at work. If you're in school and you're a student, be very efficient with your time in school so when you come home, you have time to decompress. Time management is another way of dealing with stress, right? I'm good at perception of time, but I'm not good at time management. I'm working on that, right? I'm not perfect. But in a perfect world for me, I will have a better handle on my schedule, and I'll have a better handle on how to spread myself around. Because there's days where I get up and the day goes so fast, I can't even get to a family member to say hi. I can't even get on the phone and have a chat. I'm busy. I'm a busy guy. But with time management, you should be able to do everything you need to do and circle around and circle back and, everyone you love at some point during the week, right? You give yourself 7 days. If you can't get to someone on a Monday, you should be able to get to them by the following Sunday. So prioritize time, prioritize self-care. Okay, now the other thing I'm going to talk about, which is kind of unorthodox, but it deals with the brain, stress, and recovery, is diet, lifestyle, right? So when I was talking about the hot tub and the red light and all that, diet and lifestyle. So how to deal with stress and help support the brain and your mental health when in recovery. Smart supplementation is one of the things. I would say, listen, look up, go online. You can go now. There's no excuse now. Go on YouTube, right? I could give you a few names of people you could study on YouTube to give you a sense of health. One of them is Sean Stevenson and the Model Health Show. If you know nothing about health and diet and nutrition and vitamins, listen to a podcast called A Model Health Show from Sean Stevenson, right? There's another one. Listen to the Tim Ferriss Show. Tim Ferriss is extremely smart, and he always gives you cutting-edge ways to optimize your life. Tim Ferriss is the author of The 4-Hour Work Week, The 4-Hour Body, stuff like that. Another book that's really great is How Not to Die. And that's from a doctor that runs a company called nutritionfacts.org called Dr. Michael Greger. He's the best on how to optimize plants and food and vegetables to optimize your life, right? Another name that can help you with health is Dr. Michael Berg. He's really cool. He's on YouTube. He's all into keto and smart diets and stuff like that. There's no real excuse in this day and age when you go on YouTube and get world-class advice. For the brain, you can listen to Dr. Huberman, Dr. or Huberman, the Huberman podcast, or Huberman Labs, Huberman. People, some people say Huberman, Huberman, but the Huberman podcast and Huberman Labs or Huberman, he's the man. Dr. Daniel Amen, he deals with the brain and why you shouldn't drink or smoke because he's big on the health of the brain. He can help with concepts on mental health and stuff like that. Then you have other people who deal with psychology of recovery, like Dr. Gabor Mate. He tries to talk about how to use, how to identify your addiction through grief and pain and trauma. So how to trace back childhood grief, childhood pain, young pain, and just pain in general, whether it was a death in the family, whether it was abuse, whether you hit your head, whether your addiction led to this type of pain. But let's go back to smart supplementation, right? Did you know that taking something like, now listen, I want to preface this by saying this is not medical advice. This is for entertainment purposes and conceptual purposes. I would say before doing anything medical related or any supplement or any dietary change, consult your doctor. But I'm going to give you something more than that. Go to your doctor and ask your doctor to write you a recommendation and a referral to an endocrinologist. Most of us, when we're in recovery, we don't know what's going on with our blood and our hormones and our system. Your primary care doctor can't help you with that stuff. They can kind of give you some ideas, but you have to go to an endocrinologist who's going to look at your blood. They're going to look at your urine and everything, and they're going to come back and say you have a hormone imbalance, you have a thyroid issue, you need to do this, or that to really optimize your health, right? Before I saw my endocrinologist, it was very hard for me to lose weight because I didn't know why I was gaining weight so fast. I didn't realize I had a thyroid issue, right? I didn't know why I had this allergy of my nose. They was kind of helping me identify certain things, and I never knew. I'm like, yo, where do you guys be? Like, it took me 40 years to even sit in front of an endocrinologist. And unless you don't know, sometimes you're going to have a stupid doctor that's not going to tell you. A lot of these regular neighborhood primary care doctors are not stupid, but they're just underfunded and they're overworked. So they're just trying to treat you for whatever you come in there for. So you might go to your doctor and say, hey, lately I haven't been feeling good. I had a cold. They're going to say, oh, take some Advil, take some of this, and come back in 2 months and tell me how you feel. Eat a little healthier. They're not going to go look at your blood and search all of this stuff and tell you what you need. So smart supplementation. Before you do anything like that, check your doctor. Now, did you know that to build your brain, like when we're in addiction, we really do a number on our brains, right? And what I would like to bring to your attention is when you get sober, if you're eating Twinkies and drinking coffee all day and smoking cigarettes, you're gonna be hurting your brain just as much as when you was doing addiction, right? Because your brain's trying to heal, but you're not giving it the nutrients to heal. Your brain needs energy. ATP creates energy. That's adenosine triphosphate. Without significant amounts of ADP, your body can't generate significant amounts of energy to build up the brain and the body. Without significant amounts of protein, you can't do too much. You need a lot of healthy fats to build the brain, a lot of healthy protein to build the brain. You need a lot of water to build the brain. So you need to be on a very specific diet, and you're going to need some carbs, but healthy carbs, not bad carbs, because bad carbs lead to inflammation, brain fog, brain fatigue, and just being generally overweight, which creates insulin resistance and all these other problems that gum up your whole system, right? So how to deal with stress, smart supplementation. Vitamins like B12, making sure you have a really good multivitamin. Even though there's some studies that suggest multivitamins are not effective, you should get your basic B vitamins. Like try to get a really good B vitamin complex. Another thing is B12 is something that's really good that we don't take a lot. A really good fish oil, a high DHA fish oil, which is really good for rebuilding the brain, right? You have stuff like spirulina, chlorella, really good, high protein, high nutritional density, right? Cruciferous vegetables, they have studies that suggest cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and things like that, cabbage, kales, and dark, leafy, lean vegetables really are really good. They have chemicals like sulforaphane and all these things that can really help you. So eating a diet that's well balanced, right? your gut, your stomach, inside your stomach. My stomach was a mess. It was nothing but beer and nicotine floating through my stomach for years. So my gut microbiome and my gut bacteria was really damage, right? So I had to create new gut flora and a healthy stomach. And how you do that? A lot of fiber, a lot of vegetables, a lot of nutrient diversity, right? So this is a whole world that I could talk about. But imagine if you don't even do the basics, how are you going to thrive and how are you going to deal with stress? Your brain is your first defense on dealing with stress. And if you don't have the proper nutrients and fortification, you're not going to even be able to start dealing with stress. You're going to be sad and feel helpless and tired and sluggish and give up. And then what happens is when the stress starts to create, when it gets too strong, you break down your immune system and then you start creating something called autoimmune disease. And that's a whole nother slew of problems, right? So all of this stuff it's all cyclical, right? So if I eat a bad diet, I have a bad stomach, then I have autoimmune issues, right? Because I get leaky gut, right? If I'm not eating right and my brain doesn't have the right defenses and I'm eating Twinkies all day and Heroes and Papa John's, no disrespect to Papa John's, but I'm going to have a bad gut microbiome and then I'm going to be stressed and I'm not going to have the brain power or the fortitude to deal with stress. I'm not going to have what we call a resiliency, right? Resiliency. All right. The ability to bounce back when something attacks you, right? So, smart supplementation, smart diet, drinking adequate amounts of water, getting adequate amounts of sleep, exercising. Another thing about exercising, I have these simple tips to exercising. Walk. Go for a walk every day. Do some light squats. Do 3 to 5 squats a day in the morning, 3 to 5 squats at night. Do 10 push-ups a day and go for a 20-minute walk. That's all. That's all. You don't got to go to the gym all day. Building muscle can help. But I would say calisthenics is better because the more muscle you build, the bigger you get, the bulkier you get. Now, doing some light training is always good, but too much exercise can lead to more stress, right? So let's do a recap. When dealing with stress, there's hundreds of things you could do, but we talk about a higher power. We talk about putting people in their place and prioritizing self-care and self-love. We talk about having some type of ritual after work and leaving work at home and loving yourself and taking nice showers and baths and beautifying yourself. We talk about reinforcing your mental health. We talked about smart supplementation. We talked about health education, studying smart doctors and people. Anyone I recommend to you is going to either be a scientist or a PhD doctor that's an expert, right? I'm not going to bring my boy from around the way saying you need more magnesium, right? I'm not going to come at you like that. And don't tell somebody your boy Pop told you need more magnesium. Say, my boy Pop studied world-class people and he's well-researched and he recommended that I go have my doctor take me to an endocrinologist and my endocrinologist look at my blood profile and tell me how I can optimize my health to educate myself and to study doctors who know what they're talking about. So you could be well informed on your health journey. But I do want to emphasize the importance of just taking care of yourself and being healthy, right? I'm healthy today by the grace of God. I feel better and look better than I did 5 years ago. I look younger than I did 5 years ago. So it's evidence that you could reverse aging, get better, and become more healthy as time goes on, opposed to degrading and falling, reversing your health as time goes on. You're listening to Sober is Dope, all right? I'm on a mission to save lives. I'm on a mission to share my story, and I'm on a mission of human optimization. The first step to optimizing your health, your life, and your brain, and your mind, and your spirit is sobriety.
This episode is brought to you by Liquid IV. In heart-pumping moments, you need hydration that can keep up. That's where Liquid IV comes in. Scientifically formulated to quickly replenish electrolytes and fluids lost from your well-earned sweat session. Hydrate your favorite mode of movement with Liquid IV, made with triple the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, plus 8 vitamins and nutrients, also available and sugar-free. Tear, pour, live more. Visit liquidiv.com to learn more.
Using a Clorox disinfecting wipe to clean that stuck-on sauce from the stove feels like...
Oh, boy. That tickles. Stop.
It feels like coming home to your needy corgi after a long day.
Best part of the day, finally.
With Clorox, clean feels carefree. Clean feels good. Use as directed.
And I'm specifically talking about your drug of choice, because there's someone out there that heroin might be their drug of choice, and they can have a beer every once in a while and they don't think about beer. It's not their thing. So I'm not going to tell you, oh, you shouldn't drink alcohol because it's bad. I'm going to tell you, yo, you need to go get help for your heroin because that's bad. That's your addiction, right? I have certain things that don't bother me, right? But alcohol was my Achilles heel. I can't drink. I can't have a sip. I am allergic to it. I'm poisoned by it. I'm genetically adverse to it. I cannot handle it, right? It doesn't make me a bad person. That's how I was born. My brother, he could drink and wake up the next day and not think about alcohol. I couldn't do that. If I have a drink now, I'm going to drink all the way to the morning, wake up, do it all the way again, and do that for 2 years straight until I implode and crash. That's why I have a podcast that says sober is dope. Because in my case, in your case, because I deal with sensitivities to alcohol, I need to stay sober, right? But that's not the case for everyone else. So when you're listening to Sober is Dope, we're emphasizing a clean and sober environment for those specific drugs or choices that affect you, and to give you information to support you on your individual journey. So it's not one size fits all, cut and dry, right? That's like the 10-year ago message, right? The current message is everyone is dealing with something different, right? I have friends that I encourage, yo, if you're on heroin and you got to smoke weed to get off heroin, smoke weed all day. I'll buy you the weed. I don't care what any of you guys say. If heroin is going to help you get off of that, then do it. That's called harm reduction. Study it, right, before you start judging people. All right, because until you see someone that's dealing with these things on a day-to-day, you can't judge their journey. Right. So if I have an alcohol issue and I got to eat Twinkies all day, not to drink alcohol for a year, then I'm going to eat Twinkies all day. Right. It's just one thing for another. But don't replace that for the traditional help. While you're doing that, go to AA or NA. While you're doing that, go deal with your mental health and see a psychiatrist, a therapist, take medication, pharmacotherapy if you have to. All types of therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, psychiatry, talk therapy, addiction therapy, bereavement counseling. If you're dealing with a divorce or a death in the family, right? Go get an MRI of your brain, see what's happening with your brain, right? A CAT scan or something to give you an idea if you have any brain damage due to your addiction or anything that's causing these mental health issues. All I'm saying is I promote recovery, but it's not one size fits all. I have different people in the community that has different issues, right? I have people they use mushrooms to get off of stuff and nootropics and all of these type of new therapies. I have people that do the ayahuasca. They go to Peru and they tap into their spirit. I have people who use meditation, yoga. I have people. It's hundreds of ways to get away from your particular drug of choice. But make no mistake, don't fool yourself, all right? Because you have people out there. I got friends that was California sober and it led them right back to their addiction because they couldn't handle the smoking weed and the occasional drink. I'm like, listen, if you are an alcoholic or someone who's alcohol sensitive or someone who's prone to alcohol misuse, however you want to spin it, right? You can't drink alcohol, B. Don't try to sell me on that. There's no system that could give you, I can have a little bit. No, you have to practice abstinence from your particular drug of choice. That's where I draw the line. Don't bullshit a bullshitter. If this is your drug of choice, what do we have to do to keep you away from it and to keep your stress levels low so you're not going off the deep end to use again? All right, you listen to Sober is Dope. My name is POP Buchanan, as you know. Listen. A few call to actions. Go check out my book, Sober is Dope, if you need a spiritual mindset tool for your recovery. Check out my book, Sober New Year's, if you need to really reaffirm your New Year's resolutions and get grounded again. What else? Check out I have a record label called Meta is Dope. It has a lot of positive music. It's part of the Meta is Dope company. I started with my sober girl, Jennifer Ruff, who's 2.5 years sober, and I'm proud of her. And I have a record label called Grand Echelon. I do music, so go support my music. I do hip hop. I'm a dope lyricist. You guys gonna see me on a big stage one day, but I'm always gonna come and talk to you because you my family. But support, I want you to know what I'm into so you can see how I use sobriety in real time, right? Pop uses his sobriety as a mechanism for creativity, thus enhancing my sober life and elevating me from one form of consciousness to another form of consciousness because I'm never staying in the same place at the same time. All right, I love you all. Go in peace. Don't doubt yourself. Don't stress out. Don't overthink and don't complicate it. Recovery is truly about simplicity, isolation. Isolate yourself from everything negative and all of the beautiful things in life will come to you. Don't worry about friends and this person and that person. Focus on yourself, love yourself, and embrace yourself. Because I promise you, when you're patient in your recovery, the world will come to you. God, higher power, or source will reveal to you your true calling, and you'll start to make sense of this thing called life. The biggest problem I see in people is they want to rush the results. I want to feel excellent immediately. Now, we know when we first get sober and that pink cloud, that happy feeling wears off, you kind of get stuck. Just be patient. You might have to go through that little uncomfortable period for a year or so, and then next thing you know, it's to the moon. Give yourself time. I'm in 12 years, and I'm still finding out ways to and nuances to elevate myself, okay? It's a journey that gets better, right? And you get better, but you have to do the work and be creative and think outside the box. That's enough today. Anything further, I have to send you an invoice. All right, my name is Pop. I love you all. Go in peace. God bless you all, and I'll catch you on the other side. Peace and love.